Continues. Brought to you by J.C. Penney. Tomorrow morning, our 1,700 stores and our catalog will be waiting to help you find what you're looking for. Now, from election headquarters in New York, Harry Reasoner and Howard K. Smith.
It's 9 o'clock or just about here in the eastern United States, and the popular vote in the presidency stays at about the same percentage it's been most of the evening. Right now, Nixon has 6 million plus votes, McGovern 3 million plus, Nixon 66% to McGovern's 33%.
Following the pattern of the popular vote, ABC News is now able to project the winner in 2 more states. In Texas, with its 26 electoral votes, ABC News projects that President Nixon will take it. He's running ahead with a very small popular vote in by about the same percentage that he is nationally, and he will take the state. He's in Tennessee, where he was expected to win, and where the Republicans have been running very well all night. ABC News now projects that he will take the victory. There, nearly 80% of the precincts are in, and he's running ahead of his national totals in Tennessee.
Harry, we have some projected results in the Senate races in the state of Tennessee. To no one's surprise, we project Howard Baker, the Republican candidate, the winner over Ray Blanton, the Democratic congressman who is the Democratic candidate. And in the state of Kansas, again, no surprise, the incumbent Senator James B. Pearson is the victor by our projection over Archibald Tetzlaff, the anesthesiologist who is the Democratic candidate. We have still a third projected result in the Democratic Party in the state of Arkansas. In the state of Arkansas, again, it's no surprise. The Democrat John L. McClellan, the veteran senator, wins re-election to the United States Senate from Arkansas over Wayne Babbitt, the veterinarian who is the Republican candidate.
Senator McClellan's problem, as so frequently comes in those states, came in the primary when he outlasted a youthful challenger, and once he got past that, there really wasn't much of a problem. We're running a little bit behind the other races in terms of announcing what governors are going to replace the 18 whose offices are up to date. 20 Democrats and 12 Republicans are held over. So far, we've only elected 1 Democrat and 1 Republican for a net gain for neither party. But there are 3 very interesting gubernatorial races that will be coming along. One of them we just solved. In Texas, Governor Briscoe has been projected by ABC News, the Democrat, as the victor over Henry Grover, the Republican. Governor Briscoe appealing more to traditional Texas Democratic sentiments and looking at just as conservative as his Republican opponents, and going against the trend which gave Texas to President Nixon in the national race. In Arkansas, Dale Bumpers, the Democratic incumbent, is winning very easily over the Republican challenger there. With the exception of Winthrop Rockefeller, Arkansas is not in the habit of electing Republican governors, and Dale Bumpers, who's popular down there and has had a good first term, is now going to get another one. The ones where we're looking for results and expect to get them, one of the key ones is Illinois, which ABC News has already given to President Nixon in the presidential race. But in the gubernatorial race in Illinois, the Democratic challenger, Daniel Walker, who walked all the way across the state, who challenging now the Republican incumbent, but also challenged Richard Daley successfully, is running substantially ahead of Governor Ogilvie. Probably, as so many times is the case, there's a state issue there. Governor Ogilvie was governor when a state income tax was passed. People don't like that. In Kansas, Governor Docking, a Democrat who's also one of your conservative, middle-of-the-road Democrats, has won re-election. ABC News projects for an unprecedented 4th term. Actually, almost everything Governor Docking has done recently has been unprecedented. This is his 4th 2-year term. One of the things he wants to do in this term of office is to get Kansas to change it to a 4-year term so he won't have to run all the time. Here is a very important presidential projection. In the presidential race in the state of Michigan, ABC News projects that it will go to Richard Nixon. A very small part of the popular vote is in, but our key precincts are in, and we project that Michigan and its 21 electoral votes will go to Richard Nixon, a state where even recent polls by newspapers there indicated that Senator McGovern had some chance.
I have one more projected result here, Harry. In the state of Kansas, Nixon is projected the winner of the state of Kansas in its 7 electoral votes. He's won them every time he's run before, so this is no surprise. We might take a look at the recapitulation of this whole electoral vote situation. Nixon now has 259 electoral votes to McGovern's 3. Nixon, in short, is within 9 votes, within 19 votes, within 11 votes of winning the presidency by our projection.
You may know where the Shore Motel is, but I can subtract 259 from 270, Howard.
That may have been Freudian, you know.
We've, keeping track of the governors as they go along, it's still going the same way, with 3 Democrats and 1 Republican projected as elected today by ABC News. That means that so far we've figured 23 Democrats and 13 Republicans, counting the holdovers, for the next term, and so far it's a net gain for neither. Pattern after pattern tonight, the governors and senators do not necessarily go the way the presidency goes.
We'll have more on Election 72 in just a moment.
Hey, your jacket is from Rawhide Readers, right?
No.
Little Beaver Stitching Post?
No.
Function Junction Leathers?
No.
If you want a split cowhide jacket that looks like it was made for you, but doesn't cost like it, there's only one place to go.
Manny's Tannery.
No. J.C. Penney.
Wow.
You can shop in a lot of different places to find all the clothes your boy needs at prices you can afford. Or you can get everything you're looking for in just one place. The J.C. Penney Boy Shop. We'll help you dress him handsomely from the inside out, top to bottom, in terrific easy care knits like these, for a total cost that's as low as this. And if we can make things look this good on paper, think how great they'll look on your boy. The J.C. Penney Boy Shop. We know what you're looking for.
In terms of electoral votes, we are getting very near the point where, on the basis of ABC News projections, we will be able to declare that President Nixon will win re-election. Arkansas has just been projected as going in the Nixon column. Its 6 electoral votes brings his total to 265. He has not won Arkansas before. That was a Wallace state in 1968. It's not a state that normally votes Republican. It has just re-elected a Democratic governor. But with 1% of the precincts reported, Arkansas is giving Mr. Nixon something like 66% of the vote. In 1968, he got 31%.
Harry, as a point of history, Richard Nixon becomes the first Democrat to carry Arkansas, the first Democrat to carry for 100 years, the first Republican to carry Arkansas for 100 years, the last being Ulysses S. Grant. Well, let's take a look at the total of the electoral vote now. Richard Nixon has 265 electoral votes to McGovern's 3. McGovern's 3 coming from the District of Columbia. Nixon's 265 coming from 23 states. So we have results from almost half the United States.
In this kind of a case in a convention, when you keep track of the votes as they come in, you know who is going to report next. But in a national election, it depends on so many things you don't know. Obviously, some state is going to put Mr. Nixon over the top in ABC News projection, which is not necessarily the historical record anyhow.
Let's take a look at the states that have been projected as winners for Nixon and the one place that has been projected as a winner for McGovern. There's Nixon's list. I don't know whether you can read it. There's so many on it, it's hard to read. It begins with Indiana. It ends with Arkansas. Adding up to 265 electoral votes, that's 23 states. 2 more and we'll be halfway. It does not include the 2 mega states, the 2 great states, New York and California yet, but we should be hearing something from New York after a while. McGovern's list would be a very short one, the District of Columbia with 3 electoral votes. But President Nixon's last state was Arkansas, a state that, as Harry noted, he has never carried before. State carried by John Kennedy in 1960, carried by George Wallace, barely by George Wallace in 1968. And it's a state where McGovern has had more support from the Democratic magnates of the state than he's had in most southern states. Dale Bumpers has been for him, McClellan has been for him, and J. William Fulbright has, and Wilbur Mills has.
Well, Arkansas is a puzzling state. Arkansas is a state I know fairly well, and is a state which does not hold tradition when it's not comfortable for them to. In other words, they're perfectly capable this year of electing Richard Nixon. They were also perfectly capable of electing Winthrop Rockefeller, even though he'd only been there 10 years. And in 10 years in Arkansas, you're a newcomer. And then they were perfectly capable of electing 4 times in a row Orville Faubus. It's a state that you can't actually peg ahead of time.
No, it's very hard. It's not a typical southern state at all, in any way at all. As I say, McGovern's had great support in the state of Arkansas that he hasn't found in any of the other southern states. Arkansas's 6 electoral votes put Nixon within 5 electoral votes of the 270 needed to name him, re-elect him President of the United States.
Which is an issue, I suppose, at this point that we would say is not in doubt. The question is now how much he wins by and what it means to him. I suppose he's now been able to do, for instance, in Arkansas, what neither Dwight Eisenhower nor Barry Goldwater could do. He's been able to do better than the people that he worked for. ABC News has a new projection, but it does not put Richard Nixon over the top. ABC News projects in the presidential race in Massachusetts that it will be taken by George McGovern, his second set of electoral votes, 14 more, giving him 17, and delaying, for the moment, what would seem to be the inevitable triumph for the 270 for Richard Nixon.
The last Boston Globe newspaper poll was a harbinger of this outcome. It had shown Nixon ahead through most of the campaign, but Nixon's lead began to dwindle, and finally, in the last Boston Globe poll, McGovern went over the top, and so it has been tonight in his projected results.
A lot of reasons in Massachusetts, I suppose. It's Kennedy territory. It's been far and away the most openly anti-war of all the states. Massachusetts passed a law a few years ago saying that it was illegal for the United States to draft Massachusetts citizens. And that lasted, I think, a few weeks, and the Massachusetts citizens kept getting drafted.
And the Republican senator from Massachusetts is also a kind of a maverick from Nixon's viewpoint. He's opposed Nixon. He endorses Nixon grandly, but then opposes him on most issues, like the ABM, or the Carswell vote, the Vietnam War. He recently tried to pass a bill that would stop the Vietnam War. And he is, I think, more typical of Massachusetts than the conservative who ran against him is.
Well, Massachusetts remains consistent. 2 liberal senators, 1 a Republican, 1 a Democrat. And in the Democratic column for president on the night when so far no other state, only the District of Columbia, has gone there.
Now we face the prediction that I got the other day from one of Nixon's supporters. That is that McGovern would win Massachusetts and the District of Columbia and would win nothing else. Well, so far it's worked out that way, but we have a long way to go. We've got California, we still have Rhode Island, the most democratic state in the Union, to be counted.
We still have, as a matter of fact, South Dakota. It must be very hard for a voter the first time he has a presidential candidate of a major party from his home state not to vote for him.
It's not happened in the past 3 elections that the losers lost his own home state. Barry Goldwater won Arizona, Hubert Humphrey won Minnesota, and Richard Nixon won California in 1960. It would be quite a humiliation, I think, if George McGovern failed to carry his own state, especially when the man running for the Senate in South Dakota alongside him is very strong indeed.
And the governor, Mr. Knife, who's running for re-election, and sort of a McGovern protege. When George McGovern built the Democratic Party in South Dakota, he has a lot of organizational loyalty out there. We'll have more on Election 72 in just a moment.
Five of the finest cars in America are the 1973 Continentals. We previewed them for these men and women who last May judged a ride test between the 72 Continental and the other 72 luxury car. These judges all owned the other luxury car. Yet 60 out of 100 of them picked the Continental over their own make of car. Let us show you our 73s as they saw them. Our Lincoln Continental 4-door sedan and coupe, designed for an even more comfortable ride than our 72. Our 73 Lincoln Continental Town Cars, the sedan, the Newtown Coupe. The 1973 Continental Mark IV, newly minted in silver. Introducing the 1973 Continentals. It is a very good year.
We are very near to the point where ABC News projections will declare that President Nixon has been reelected. He's sitting with 265 electoral votes, 5 short of the 270 he needs, compared to George McGovern's 17. A number of elements are involved in the delay, among them the policy that we do not report projections in any given state until the polls have closed in that state. In the meantime, let's take a look at the race for governor in Illinois, one of the most fascinating of all the gubernatorial races this year, where Dan Walker, an insurgent Democrat who challenged Richard Daley's machine successfully, is leading Governor Ogilvie, the Republican incumbent, who was in office when an income tax was passed, which is very hard on governors. I think that we have a report on the Illinois governorship, and we'd like to hear about that now.
One of the few places where President Nixon visited during the closing days of the race was right here in Chicago. He came here not so much to do any good for Senator Percy, who didn't need much help, nor to do much good for himself, because he didn't need that much help here in Illinois either. The president came here basically to help out Governor Ogilvie. Governor Ogilvie's problem here in running for re-election is that he was the first governor in Illinois to put in a state income tax. And this has hurt him here, although his record otherwise has been fine for governor of a state. In fact, many people here in many quarters, Democrats and Republicans, have said that Governor Ogilvie is the best governor Illinois has had. But few people, especially downstate and the conservative businessmen, want to forget, it seems, the state income tax that Governor Ogilvie put in. The Democrats, fearing a Nixon landslide here, have been trying to educate the voters to split their ticket, meaning expecting a vote for President Nixon and for Senator Percy to split their ticket when it comes to governor, and not to vote for Governor Ogilvie, but to vote for the Democratic opponent of Governor Ogilvie's, Dan Walker. The Democrats have put on a large campaign about this here in television and in the newspapers, and right now it appears to be an extremely close race for governor. A lot will depend on how big Mr. Nixon's lead is here in Illinois and what will be the coattail effect. But if it's enough, if they're splitting, meaning if there's a split ticket, if they vote here mainly for President Nixon and for Senator Percy, will the sophisticated, intelligent voters here in Illinois who have split tickets before, will they stick with Governor Ogilvie or go against him? Perhaps it's significant that as I was driving through town here today, one cab driver said to me, yes, Ogilvie's done a very good job, but I can't forget the state income tax. He took money from my pocket, even though it went into state programs. He said he just couldn't vote for Ogilvie. And here at Ogilvie headquarters in Chicago, this is the fear, this is what they're worrying about now. And that's the story from Ogilvie headquarters in Chicago.
I think that the problems of Governor Ogilvie with the state income tax are typical of the problems that governors have. Governors of all the public officials are the ones who take the beating on things that they have to do. As Lou Harris once said, your senator is down in Washington debating whether or not to recognize Red China, and your governor just slapped you with a new gasoline tax.
One of McGovern's big problems in the state of Pennsylvania was the fact that his only major supporter was the Governor Milton Schaaf, and Governor Milton Schaaf was unpopular for the very good reason that he'd raised taxes twice in his term. All the other people who didn't face such problems supported Nixon.
But if you're going to be a good governor, one of the things it involves is frequently raising taxes.
Unless you can make federal revenue sharing work a lot faster than it's working now.
A lot more than it ever will in the lifetime of most. I'm surprised any governor ever gets reelected, as a matter of fact. And yet, it used to be that it was from the governors that you got your presidential candidates. That's changed.
Well, it may once again be that way. If revenue sharing does develop, governors will be responsible more and more for solving our social and national problems, which they've ceased to be since the federal government's assumed so much power. If the federal government really divests itself of power and gives it back to the states, I think we'll see a resurgence of the importance of governors. Well, we're sitting here and we're waiting for that result, which we think may put Mr. Nixon across the top by projection. As you know, Nixon has won something like 25 states now and 265 electoral votes. There's the board that shows Nixon's 265 votes, lacking only 5 for the 270 it takes to win. McGovern has 17 electoral votes derived from the District of Columbia's 3 electoral votes and the state of Massachusetts' 14 electoral votes. 1 state and 1 district won by McGovern. About 24 or 25 states won by Nixon.
We're just beginning to get the first trickle of votes in, popular votes from another major state in the New York presidential race. Less than 1% of the precincts so far, but Mr. Nixon running ahead with 59% of the votes, and McGovern's 41.
Excuse me,
out of
Harry.
a total of 500.
We have a projected result which will put Nixon across the top. In the state of Ohio, Nixon is declared the winner by ABC News projection. Ohio and its 26 electoral votes go to Nixon by our projection on the basis of key precincts. That will serve, I believe, to put Mr. Nixon across by a good deal more than he needed. He had 265 electoral votes. Now, with your wonderful mathematical mind, you add that up for me and tell me how many votes
I think
he's
it makes
got.
something like 291, if I add it correctly. If your word was 26.
Nixon wins re-election to the presidency. That's what that means. There's no doubt about it.
And you say with more than he needed, and he's obviously going to get a good deal more, whether he needs them or not, as time goes on.
At least 1/3 of the population has not yet had the polls closed, so we still have a lot to go, but Nixon has won the re-election to the presidency of the United States, and it's beginning to look as though the pollsters knew what they were talking about. The popular vote now shows Nixon with 65%, McGovern with 34%, and all the main states that have showed up, with the exception of Massachusetts, have all gone to Nixon. The big state of Michigan, the big state of Ohio, the big state of Illinois.
And that has been very consistent from the first few percentage points of popular vote that came in. Mr. Nixon has held almost that 2-to-1 lead. Mr. McGovern is gaining slowly, but I don't think he's going to make it. In the electoral vote, Nixon now holds 290, projected by ABC News, to McGovern 17. Senator McGovern so far holding only the District of Columbia and Massachusetts. And that's the national election story at 22 minutes after the hour.